This is a piece of work that I did, alhamdulillah. Now this is part 21 of Online Madrasa Integrated. Now I read a book called of Sheikh Muhammad Al-Hazali. It's a thematic commentary on the Quran. Now what he did was, he basically looked at every surah and then he presented a kind of a topic, which is like the major theme of that particular surah. So what I did is to list all the themes, a common theme of each surah, and then try to write an essay which will combine all these themes into one essay. That's why I called it Online Madrasa Integrated. So the aim of this particular exercise was to, the attempt of this work is to present the integral nature and character of each surah. The motivation for this work is to find an integrated meaning pattern of each surah in the Quran. And the following summary could be gleaned, I think it must be easy, no, I'm not sure, from his work. And the holistic integration of this work is necessary to find a motivation to see the Quran as a whole. Now, some of the ulama state that you can, in actual fact, find various sequences if you read the Quran from cover to cover. There are various sequences in the Quran. It depends on the soul of the person. Now, that's very important, because one finds when you study the Quran, when you just start reading the Quran on just a regular basis, you find that when you open up the Quran, it actually addresses you for that particular need that you have. And that's just like a miracle in itself. So if you have a specific need, the Quran will actually relate to you in a specific way. So what I did is to complete an essay which runs in sequence. So the above, the sequence is a sequential motivational presentation of this holistic integration of Muhammad al-Ghazali's integral character of each of the surah. He just decided to have like an integral character of every surah. It is clear that the holistic integration was fueled by motivational aspects of the Quran. The translator and interpreter's intention determines the presentation of the meaning of the Quran. So what I'm saying is, sometimes you find a translation of a Quran and the person is very political. And then the person's interpretation of the Quran will be more leaning to politics. Or the person is a scientist and then it will be leaning more to the sciences. If he's a psychologist, he will lean more to psychology. If he's a teacher, he will lead more within teaching and etc. So it depends on what's the person's intention, and then the person actually reads into the Quran, what he wants to see. Now that's very dangerous. What one must do is to try and read the Quran, allow to read the Quran, and let the Quran speak to you. Let Allah speak to you and formulate your heart, etc., and help you along, instead of going to the Quran with your own ideas. And you see some of the lecturers, they do that. They come to the lecture or the Jumu'ah or whatever the case might be, and they pick out certain verses and something that affected them or disturbed them. They will then go all out in terms of the lecture, but that is dangerous. One must not go to the Quran with an intention to find verses to support your idea or your feelings or your or your actual your features that upset you, or whatever the case may be. Rather go to the Quran open-heartedly and let the Quran speak to you. So I'm going to try and give you now a summary of integration that I basically tried to put together from this Sheikh's work dealing with the themes of the Quran. Okay, so just to give you a brief, say for instance, he says Surah Fatiha, the opening, the main feature is to praise Allah and to depend on Allah. And Surah Baqarah is need for building a balanced society. So that is the way I interpret one sentence, his whole meaning of his thematic meaning. Now here is the way I try to put this thematic feature together. Okay, so let's start, inshallah. Now you will find certain features that you would like to see, but for me it was interesting to actually just write this feature. Okay. When one looks at holistic motivation can be extracted from the integral character of each surah as summarized by Muhammad al-Ghazali. God removes the heavy responsibility of the sustenance of the universe from the shoulders of man. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, God is the king and owner of it all, Surah number 1. He saves man from the destructive force of self-glory. So that's the way I see. Now one goes further. The Quran informs mankind how to cope with external threats, Surah number 3. External threats must not distract one from family, Surah number 2, and community, Surah number 4, and courtesy, or community courtesy, Surah number 4. For this one needs to be open for personal advice, Surah number 5, regarding the self and social relationships, Surah number 6, and how to attain inner and outer peace, Surah number 7. The Quran assures mankind that God is always the third person knowing man's needs. God teaches the reader and listener how to deal with skeptics or skepticism. The Quran warns the refuters of their fate and reflects on history to deter them from their folly, Surah number 9. Now a sure guidance is given on ways out of darkness. At times, defense wars are necessary, but not without the help and guidance of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The ways the ways 24, 25. The struggles of life is approached are signs of the levels of faithfulness. This gives the individual a chance to rectify personal disequilibriums. Man is encouraged to find inner tranquility and wisdom through contemplation. The marvels of the human being should be a main focus for contemplation and appreciation. In other words, our bodies are the greatest sign of Allah's existence. The significance of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam's mission shows mankind the human possibilities of all-encompassing success. The start of personal growth lies in belief that the Quran is not a fabricated publication. Its civility presents evidence and strength for the realization of divine unity. Surah number 80. The uniqueness of birth itself is a mercy to mankind to reflect on God's grace. Surah number 19. The Quran confronts and motivates the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and hence all believers of the world, to accept the guidance to uplift human condition. Righteousness brings real success in the afterlife. The cornerstone of righteousness is rationality under all conditions. Integrity of life's rationality brings a greater personal reward. The Quran is the foundation and criterion for universal truth. At Surah number 25. The level of successful output rests on not stressing about the ungrateful disbeliever. The truth of the message does not depend on human acceptance, because even animals bear testimony to the truth of Allah's guidance. I remember now, there's an ayah in the Quran just before Surah Yasin. It says, if Allah must punish people for what they do wrong, not a single living soul will exist in this world. That's a very important point, because we tend to think that we are so wonderful when we do things which are righteous and which are good, not realizing that sometimes the ego takes over. So may Allah protect us, inshallah. So the Quran revives the messages of old and relates to the trials of those who strove in carrying over the truth. None went through these trials without witnessing the signs of divinity. In other words, when we go through hardship, but we stick to the presence of Allah, or to what Allah wants us to do, then Allah gives us help from where we don't even expect. Inshallah. The reality of success lies in the good advice of fathers to sons. The universe and man show gratefulness to Allah for the favors of life, of which water, food, and family are of the greatest favors to be grateful for. The success of a people stems from their leader being prepared for divine advice. Such leaders, or I would change that to servants of Allah, of whom Nabi Muhammad ibad, from the word ibad, servants of which Nabi Muhammad sallallahu is their leader, and their people will have the confidence to withstand any objections to the truth. Mankind is further encouraged and motivated by the Quran's revelation that angels assist man in their truthful endeavors. That's Surah number 35. The heart knows and will give account of the truth of all existence. Inspiration and motivation comes from angels, supporting individuals by the command of Allah Almighty. Muslims thus have a high status because they are divinely supported at all times. The purity of self and action is generated by the Muslim's consciousness of Allah, fear of His wrath, and hopeful of His mercy. Surah number 40. Not all people are motivated by belief in God. Different groups behave differently and received their deserved rewards. Guidance from Allah is protection and is the best message to convey. The reality that evil gets more worldly, tangible sponsors, yet in vain, is a solace for Muslims, for the Muslims' wisdom to depend on Allah alone. Ramadan is the great leveler of greed, which brings order to human nature, away from worldly dependence. It is an opportunity to repent, thank Allah and parents for the value of Quran's holistic guidance. The orphaned Prophet ﷺ brought mercy to all families. The victory of Islam is the homecoming of the soul. Surah number 48. Respect for the Prophet ﷺ is the essence of civility, which leads to the full benefit of Quranic guidance. Oh dear. Guidance is the realization that Judgment Day balances all the efforts of life. The sustenance from the unseen, natural means soothes the human soul. The light of the Quran brightens human knowledge. I need to face the impending end of the self and the universe. The great mercies from Allah on the earth and in the universe are evidence man cannot deny. Surah 55, Surah Al-Rahman. The resurrection is inevitable. The humility of the hearts brings strength. Hearts bring strength to the believers. Stress is satanic. Believers and trusters in Allah do not suffer such stresses. They have invested in divinity by seeking to defend the weak, stay clear from false commitments, and continue to work hard towards Allah. They are not hypocritical. They take everything as a sign from Allah, and with the universe praise Him. They seek no praise, are courteous, and do not prohibit what is lawful. They work for Allah with eagerness and know that their deeds are recorded and never lost. They have knowledge that the last day is inevitable. They resist temptation. They resist temptation and know, and they are risen. Allah Ta'ala rise them up by Allah to ranks of honor. They are and be risen by Allah's honor to ranks of honor. They do not give up. They know that many of the unseen existent jinns also serve Allah Almighty. This they know because they hear the words uttered through the honored and protected servants from Allah, Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. They hear the words through the honored and protected servant from Allah, Nabi Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. It is the surety of the resurrection which generates their remembrance of Allah, whom they miss and want to meet again. The wind and the rain, it reminds him of his mercies. The message of Allah is clear. in the universe. The end is near. The believer is not too busy for the world to notice the fleeting time. They fear the last hour, but finds motivation that their good deeds will be rewarded. So they believe that graves will render its contents, and hence believe in their accountability and trust their Creator's promise to help them on this day. The oppressors will suffer, and the Muslims will be triumphant. Sharia helped them succeed in this world. The sun, night, light, lightning also bears witness to the Muslims' correct understanding of life's effort. The love of Allah, the night of power, brought the truth, and the earth is ready to reveal its truths. They are sure that they will defend Allah's truth in defense wars. They worry. The worry is for the squanderer of wealth and talents, the slanderers, and those who mock. The believer helps others coexist with wisdom and is assured of the fruits of their belief and effort. They love their testimony that Allah is one and has no partner, and trust in His protection from physical and psychological harm. Ya Allah Akbar. Wallahu ta'ala a'lam. Shukran. Assalamu alaikum.